Good afternoon, and welcome to the International Association of Government Officials webinar entitled, What the Cloud Can Do for You. My name is Naja Alvarado, and I am here to assist you if you need any help during this webinar. Before we get started, let's go over a couple quick items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. Located on your GoToWebinar control panel is a bio for today's speaker, as well as a PDF of their PowerPoint presentation. We are looking forward to your comments and questions in regards to the program. When you have a comment or question, please click on the Chat or Questions tab in the GoToWebinar control panel and type your text into the box. We will address all questions at the end of the presentation. If you called in on a phone, please be sure to enter your audio PIN if you would prefer to verbalize your question. Today's program is being recorded. An archive of today's program and the PowerPoint presentation will be available online within 48 hours. Our presenters today are Mark Nix, Co-File Product Manager, Matthew McLean, Co-File Product Manager for California, and Kevin Dente, Co-File Director of Engineering. Mark has worked in product management, customer service on a variety of real property records management systems, from Government Record Services, ACS, Xerox Services, and Co-File Technologies for 20 years. Matthew is a pre-sales engineer and product manager for Co-File, responsible for rolling out Co-File's cloud-based products for the state of California. He has been in the local government records management sphere since 2008. He has held various roles from software development, system implementations, product management through to product management and pre-sales. Prior to that, he implemented a manufacturing and supply chain management system with large multinational companies such as SC Johnson, Novartis, Reckitt Benckiser, and Co-File for 14 years. And so, without further ado, it is my pleasure to give you Mark Nix. Mark, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Naja, and welcome to everybody. If you've been around for a while, you've probably seen a lot of changes in the way we record and preserve real property documents. Computers were first introduced into your offices in the 80s. Now there's this thing called the cloud. What is it? And how can it affect your office and your records? What about viruses and ransomware? How can you protect your data? These are the questions we'll address today, and I hope you'll walk away with a better understanding of the options that you face. What is the cloud? Contrary to popular misconception, the cloud isn't floating somewhere out there in the sky. It's actually made up of physical locations that house software, hardware, and services that are accessible over the internet as opposed to servers located in your office. There's not just one cloud, there are many clouds. They are run by companies, big and small, by universities, and by the government. You have a local area network in your office and maybe even in your home. If you enable outside access to that network, some people would consider that to be a cloud. Cloud is just used to identify a network of computers, servers, and peripherals that can be accessed remotely. There's a lot you need to know about the different kinds of clouds before you make a decision about where to put your critical data. There are three kinds of clouds: private, public, and government. Like we just mentioned, the network in your home is a private cloud. Companies, government agencies, schools, anybody can create a private cloud. Public clouds, on the other hand, are created by the major national service providers. The biggest is Amazon, followed by Microsoft, Google, and others. Government clouds are fairly new. There are two primary providers, Microsoft and Amazon. The primary differences are service levels and security. Think about the private cloud in your home. You own it and you manage it. Any security is dependent upon the effort you put into it. In other words, not much, right? If somebody can guess your password, they're in. Private companies such as banks, credit card companies, and software vendors may have their own private clouds. Public cloud providers are at a whole different level. Amazon and Microsoft spend millions of dollars every year to provide tools to manage their services and protect against external intrusions. There is no way a bank, much less a county, can provide the same level of security as Microsoft or Google. If you think about all the data breaches you've heard about in the news, they are almost all related to private clouds. That's not to say a breach of a public cloud is not possible, but it is far less likely than somebody hacking into a private cloud. There's just no way smaller organizations can apply the same level of protection available to the major public cloud providers. And finally, the government cloud is fairly new. Microsoft and Amazon are the leaders. The only difference from a public cloud is that the government cloud has to pass specific certifications in order to be used by the federal government. CoFile's Vanguard products are currently built on Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services. We'll be moving to the Microsoft Government Cloud when it becomes available. In an on-premise deployment, workstations and servers and peripherals like printers and scanners are all located on your local area network in your office or data center. Your workstations have a direct connection to the servers hosting your data and your images. This is the way computer systems have been built since the 80s. The biggest advantage of a client-server architecture is that it's fast and you are not dependent on the internet. The biggest disadvantages from a vendor's point of view is that they are difficult to manage and update. From a security point of view, once a hacker has managed to gain control of a workstation, then they have direct access to your server and to your data. In the 90s, the internet came along, and with it came web-based architecture. A web browser is used to access data that's stored somewhere else. Security is minimal and it's not very scalable, meaning it works well for one site or one customer, but doesn't work so well for 25 or 50 customers. Cloud applications, on the other hand, can scale to host any number of counties and any number of users. Security can be built in to control access from the workstation, and more important, to control access to the server. There are a few more important terms you should know. Infrastructure as a service simply means your vendor will pick up your on-premise server and move it either to a private cloud at their office or to a public cloud. The only advantage to this approach is that it's not in your office, but it's probably much slower and more expensive. Many vendors do this just so they can say they have a cloud product, but that is just a smokescreen. Software as a service is the 90s product using web-based architecture. It's browser-based and it runs over the internet. Platform as a service is a whole new approach. It requires building applications from the ground up designed specifically for the cloud. We call this approach native cloud, and it is by far the best of all. CoFile's Vanguard Records Management System is native cloud. It's brand new and has been in development for the past 5 years. It's built like this. Users' workstations communicate with the primary service, and load balancers direct the traffic to the most available servers. Vanguard is hosted on Microsoft's West Coast data center, running as many instances of services as are needed for current levels of activity. It's divided into 3 sections: application services, image storage, and index data. Images are stored in a primary location and are immediately copied to 2 separate locations. Data is hosted on 2 separate database servers, which are constantly replicated. Then the images and the data are replicated to a second Microsoft data center located outside Washington, D.C. Another 3 copies of the images are created and another 2 copies of the data are created. When all those copies are in sync, then the transaction is reported as successful and your document is officially recorded. This process of replication ensures that the documents we store are accurate and it provides real-time fault tolerance. For example, if a server in data center 1 fails, we switch to the second or the third server. If the entire data center fails, we switch to data center 2, where additional redundancy is available. This process is called auto failover, and it takes place in seconds. Not only is your data protected, but also high availability is assured. There are a number of advantages the cloud provides, not the least of which is cost. Here's an example of the on-premise deployment that's probably located in your office right now. You have all your workstations connected to your network, which is connected to your application server and data set server and image file server. You or somebody in your office or on your IT staff has to manage the backups. You swap out the tapes every night, hopefully. You or your staff has to manage the servers, replace the hardware, update the software. Your office space is tied up with the servers. You pay for electricity. You pay for air conditioning. You pay for the staff to manage all this. In a cloud deployment, most of all this goes away. No servers, no backups, no server room, no utilities, no IT staff to manage it all. All that's left is your workstations and printers and your local area network. Everything else is managed by CoFile and Microsoft. That's not to say your IT staff goes away. It simply frees them up for other work, like managing the county network. From time to time, there are new features that need to be installed on your system. Sometimes there are bugs that need to be fixed. In a typical on-premise installation, these program updates must be deployed to each server one at a time. If your software vendor has a lot of clients, it can take some time before all their systems are updated. So typically, these updates are scheduled to occur quarterly at most. For vendors using platform as a service, where the server is simply moved from your office to their data center, the same logjam occurs. Each site is updated one at a time. For native cloud deployments, also called multi-tenant, everybody runs on the same code base. So when program updates are deployed, it happens only once. Every tenant gets the update at the same time. At CoFile, we have found that weekly deployments work best. Feature upgrades and bug fixes are immediate. Everybody benefits. And that applies not only to software upgrades, but also to security releases. Recently, Intel announced a security flaw in one of their processors. Industry projections estimated 8 to 10 months to upgrade system software for computers and services worldwide. However, within hours of making that announcement, Microsoft had upgraded all their servers in all their data centers, eliminating the security breach overnight. In a typical native cloud application, user authentication is provided by your Active Directory. When you say a user is authenticated, then they'll be given access to the application. If you deactivate a user on the county network, they lose access to Vanguard. We also authenticate the address of each workstation. All data communication with the cloud is encrypted. Without the internal access key, no communication occurs. Personal information, such as social security numbers, are further encrypted when they are stored in the database. So even if they were accessed, they couldn't be read without the key. Our staff periodically scans for vulnerabilities. We have tools that scan continuously for attempts to gain access. Microsoft Azure employs their own tools and performs their own scans to guard against intrusion. Together, we are able to provide a much higher level of protection. You've probably heard in the news about ransomware attacks on city and county governments across the country. Recently, one of our customers, Ward County, Texas, was hit by ransomware. Their entire network was compromised. All of their data was encrypted by the hackers, and they were forced to pay the ransom to get it unlocked. All of it except their Vanguard data, which was secured in the cloud. We cleared the virus from their workstations, and they were immediately back in business. Other county offices were not so lucky. The district clerk, the sheriff's department, personnel, all were out of service for weeks. It's really more than just disaster recovery. It's recovery and business continuity. Not only do you want your data to be protected and recoverable, but you also want to be able to resume normal operations as quickly as possible. Native Cloud covers both scenarios. By making continuous backups and by replicating to other geographic locations, we can assure that your data is protected and can be recovered. By duplicating servers in separate data centers with automatic failover, we assure continuous operations in case of a data center outage. Further, because we are hosted in a native cloud environment, we are not tied to a physical network. Vanguard is available via an internet connection from any location, including a Wi-Fi hotspot. We wrap a lot of security around Wi-Fi connections to prevent unauthorized use. But our native cloud implementation allows us to pick up a workstation, move to the library or community center, set up a mobile hotspot, and we are back in business. It can literally happen in less than an hour. Servers don't have to be relocated or rebuilt. We just have to have a secure connection to them. I have two cases we can cite. Refugio County, Texas, is located on the Gulf Coast just north of Corpus Christi. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey came ashore, causing severe damage to the county courthouse. County servers were all underwater. It took weeks before the damage could be repaired and servers could be rebuilt before the county clerk was able to resume normal operations. As a result, Refugio County made the decision to switch to Vanguard's cloud deployment, so they will be better prepared the next time Mother Nature hits. Dallas County's main office was flooded after a major water leak last year. Included in the damage was the data center and all their servers. Recovery took weeks before they were back in operation. Those are both examples of long-term outages which you cannot accept. You know the business of real property recordings is vital to your constituents. A cloud implementation can significantly reduce outages and allow you to continue business. So if the cloud allows us to continue business in a remote location after a disaster, what can the cloud do when we're not facing a disaster? The answer is mobile offices. Using that same mobile hotspot, we can take a workstation, even a laptop, out of the office and set up virtually anywhere. With a laptop, we can conduct most business, such as recording documents, searching for documents, completing most transactions. With a complete workstation, we can perform every function outside the office that can be performed inside the office. Scanning and printing are available as long as we bring along those peripherals. Bexar County, Texas, which is in San Antonio, recently elected a young new county clerk with a mission to provide community outreach. Bexar County has only one recording location. For many constituents, it's not easy to drive into the office and pay for parking and negotiate the county complex in order to record a document and to purchase a certified copy of a document. So she asked us, is it possible to take the office to them? Our answer was yes. we created a mobile workstation, easily transportable and easy to set up. Every week, she goes to a different community center, sets up the mobile stations, and her office is open for business. It's been tremendously well received, and it's extended the reach of her office and the services provided to Bexar County residents. Native Cloud offers completely new directions for recording real property documents with new and exciting options you can take advantage of. It's critical that you understand how it's different from client-server on-premise solutions and how it affects you. We have white papers, which we can distribute to you after this webinar, and we're ready to provide any information you need. We can provide answers to the questions you have right now, particularly if you have questions that are technical. Joining me are Kevin Dente and Matthew McLean, who can respond to specific questions. And I'll turn it back over now to Nadja.
Thank you so much, Mark. To all of our attendees, if you now look under the Handouts section of your GoToWebinar profile, you will be able to see the PDF of this webinar presentation as well as the handouts that Mark was just referring to. You are welcome to download those files for your own benefit. We will now move to the question and answer portion of this session. As a reminder, you can continue to submit your questions through the questions panel, or you may raise your digital hand to speak. Our first question today, we had an attendee who asked, can you highlight the benefits of a cloud-based business continuity solution versus past conventional methods?
Yes, we can. This is Matthew. So one of the benefits is the fact that it's more economical and cost-effective using the cloud compared to the conventional solutions. The cloud gives you the ability to provide subscription-based services instead of having to do huge upfront cost layouts, and it moves stuff away from capital expenses. And we found that procurable cloud-based continuity solutions are available in most countries. The flexibility of the cloud services turns up reliability factors to far above 99%. And we can plan to handle downtime and continue the business as needed, whereas enterprise needs to ensure sufficient bandwidth is available. But the cloud itself it just allows you that high level of continuity that nothing else before has ever been able to provide.
Thank you so much, Matthew. We have another question here. What can decision makers within agencies expect to see differently when it comes to budgeting for a cloud service?
Okay, I'll answer this question too. Cloud services are typically provided via a subscription basis, which means you're going to shift from a capital expense to an operating expense. And the potential benefits of this model is there's less upfront investment and the costs are more predictable over time. And officials must understand other nuances when they're moving away from a fixed payment model. Capital expenditures for new data center equipment can be significant, but multiple budget cycles may be passed before IT requests more funds for the same type of hardware or new hardware to replace this hardware. However, with cloud services, these new funds are allocated each year to maintain or, if necessary, increase existing levels of services. Therefore, with a cloud solution, officials would need to look beyond the first year costs by conducting 3 or 5 year total cost of ownership budget modeling.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, Matthew, and Kevin. Since we have no more questions at this time, it is now time to end today's program. The webinar on demand and PowerPoint slides and the handouts will be available online within 48 business hours on IGO's website, www.iaogo.org, as well as information about other upcoming webinars starting again in February. Thank you again to our presenters, Mark Nix, Matthew McLean, and Kevin Dente, for sharing your time and expertise with us. and to each of our attendees for participating in the International Association of Government Officials Educational Webinar Series. We look forward to seeing many of you at the 2020 IGO Midwinter Conference this January in Isle of Palm, South Carolina, and we hope you all have a wonderful day.